This is the Happy Families podcast with Dr. Justin Coulson. We're Luke and Susie, a husband and wife radio team with 3 young boys. This is the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants some answers now.
We spend so much time trying to work out the best way, the right way to discipline our children, to be able to nurture them, to grow them, to teach them to be the people that we want them to be. But then every now and then we come into a situation where somebody else's kids are around. And,
Yes.
and we don't feel like we have as much control, which I feel makes us more tempted to just want to smack them, even if that's not something you do. Like it's weird. I feel like when it's your kids, you've got a long history of strategy. When it's somebody else's kids, it can be even more frustrating because what are you allowed to do or say, and what are you not allowed to do or say? This is a public debate we've been having for years and probably will never stop having.
When can you discipline other people's children? Dr. Justin Coulson, help us know the boundaries here.
The most important thing that we need to focus on here is what discipline is. So normally when this debate comes up, people are like, is it okay for me to hit someone else's kid? Or is it okay for me to stick someone else's child in the corner and tell them to just sit there and get over it? And I think that that's unhelpful.
Yep.
We have a fundamental misunderstanding in this country of what discipline means.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked about this more than once, but it's worth rehashing. Discipline, this is interesting. If you look discipline up in the dictionary today, it says punish. And punish, when you look that up, says to hurt someone because you don't like the way they've behaved.
Yeah.
But if you look up discipline in a dictionary that's more than about 20 or 30 years old, it says something different. It says it comes from the root Latin word disciplus, or a disciple, which is one who follows. So if we're going to use hitting and hurting as our form of discipline, what exactly are we inviting children to follow? We're inviting them to follow a model that says might is right. The big person can use their power over the weak person and make them do whatever they want. The older versions of the dictionary tell us that discipline actually means teach, guide, instruct. So if we are having a conversation about whether it's okay to discipline other people's children, the answer is absolutely. We have a responsibility to teach them, guide them, and instruct them. We just need to do it without yelling, without using our hands, and without sticking them in corners or taking things off them.
Yes.
Which, to be honest, I find easier to do that calmly with somebody else's kids.
Yes. It's so funny when people are saying to me, I keep on losing the plot at my kids, they're driving me insane, I just want to stop hitting them. I say, well, just pretend they're somebody else's. Although then they might say, fine, go home. Oh, hang on, you are.
So when someone, let's just say you've got somebody else's kids in your care, and your kid and their kid are doing the wrong thing, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So what's the strategy? Where's the line of what's okay and what's not okay?
Oh, so let me share a couple of examples here. One of my friends was in the kitchen with her husband and their teenage son. He was about 16 years old, and the teenage son had one of his buddies over. Let's call him Buddy, okay? Just because
He was the buddy.
he was the buddy.
That's good.
I see how you connected that.
Yeah, that's right. So Buddy starts dropping a couple of words, some coarse language, the kind of language that my friends don't use in their home under any circumstances ever. And so this is an opportunity for some discipline. My friend's husband, she watched him as he just walked out of the room after he'd dropped the 3rd or 4th swear word. And a moment later he said, hey, and he called out to his son, I just need to chat with you for a sec. And so she was left with Buddy in the kitchen. And in the living room, he quietly whispered to his son and he said, that's the 4th time your friend Buddy has said this. Would you like to let Buddy know what our rules are, or would you prefer that I do? And I love the way he did that. He actually gave his son the opportunity to, do you want me to do it? It could be embarrassing for you, or would you rather do it? And his son said, I've got it. I've got it. So they walked back into the kitchen, and about 30 seconds later, the son said, hey, Buddy, let's go and do this. And so they disappeared out of the kitchen. It was the perfect opportunity. And while they were out of the kitchen, they had the conversation, and they never had that problem again. If the children are younger and you don't have that option, and by the way, you do, you can say to your 7-year-old, this is what's been going on. You know what the expectation is. Would you like me to talk to your friend, or would you prefer to do it yourself? I think it's a really soft way, and it helps the kids to be responsible.
Yes.
We underestimate them, and we experienced this recently with he was 7 at the time, about to turn 8, when a child in his class who had been told all year he was going to come to his birthday party had recently had an encounter of bullying and official allegation and mediation at the school with one of our son's friend, and as it turns out, when we had the conversation, with our son as well. But the mediation was about the friend. And so he had this friend who was going to come to his party, and then the kid who had been mean, who was also, in theory, coming to the party. And Susie, you started the conversation.
Yeah, and I said to him, I hope you understand we're not going to have this person at our party now because of the way he's been with your friend. Your friend has already RSVP'd. They've been your friend for 3 years now, and I don't want them to feel uncomfortable in our home. Does that make sense? Is that okay? And he said, yeah, that's okay. I just don't know how I'm going to tell him. And so we came back to the conversation a little bit later, and I'd found out a bit more, and that's when I'd found out that our son had also had some difficulties with this same child. And I said, well, you know what, I'm making the call here. So I'm happy for you, if you need to say to this boy that he can't come to the party because I made the call, that there's already a lot of children and I've said that he's not allowed to come. I gave him an out, and his response was, no, I'm going to tell him he can't come to my party because he's been mean to me and my friend, and that's not okay.
It's his fault.
And then,
it's his fault.
And the next day, that's right, that's what he said. He said, I'm not going to tell him it's your fault, I'm going to tell him it's his fault. And he came back to me the next day, and he'd had that conversation with him. And the other child's first reaction was, well, you can't come to my party either. But there's not been an incident with that boy ever since, with either of the children, with either my son or his other good friend. And in fact, he said to me the other day, you know what, I think we're kind of friends now.
Yeah. It's amazing what happens when we have these clean conversations. And when I say clean, I mean we just get straight to it. And so to go back to Luke's initial question, if there are a couple of kids that are messing around and they're doing the wrong thing and they're not your kids, I think it's very simple for us to step in and say, I need to talk to you for just a minute, Isabel, or Caleb, or whoever it is.
Buddy.
And we want to say, what's happening here is not how we do things in our home. It might be okay for you to do it at your place, but that's not how we do it here. What we do here is this, this, and this. And if you want to extend the conversation for just a moment, you might say, can you think of any reasons why we might not like that here? Because we want them to understand why. It's not about being all hardcore authoritarian. It's about actually teaching them.
Yeah.
Maybe I can share a quick personal experience as well. We had a situation with one of my children. Well, I'll just say which one it was. The eldest one. She's old enough to have boyfriends. We've told our kids, no boy. We've only got girls, okay? So from the outset, we've just said, you don't have a romantic interest. You don't have a boyfriend until you've finished high school because we want you to, it messes up with friendships and it gets in the way of your schooling and da-da-da-da-da. Anyway, we got halfway through year 12, so we think we did okay with the first one. She's halfway through year 12. She's finally got a boyfriend and we're like, oh, this is driving us crazy. But there's been a couple of incidents where together they haven't acted with integrity. And as a result, while they haven't been up to what I would call mischief, they haven't been honest with us. And so when the boyfriend was visiting a little while ago at our place, I said to him, we'll call him Jared because that's his name.
Buddy.
I said to him, Jared, we need to have a chat. And he looked at me with that look of dread and fear in his eyes that any boyfriend, with my girlfriend's father.
Yeah.
And he knew when I pulled the baseball bat out that this was going to be...
Yeah.
So we went for a walk and we sat down and I said, Jared, I want to have a really clean, open conversation with you.
Yeah.
This is an expectation that I have. How do you feel about that? It hasn't been lived up to at this point. And I recognise that there are two involved in this. But I want you to be absolutely clear on where I stand and why. Do you have any questions? And we had about a 15-minute conversation, at which point I said, betray my trust and I'll destroy you. No, I didn't really say that. I might have thought it, but I didn't say it. And it's amazing what's happened since. It's been considerable time since, and the level of respect has remained because it was done the right way. He still shows up at our house. He still says hi. He still shakes hands. He still engages in conversations because it's not about getting other kids in trouble. When they do something that's inappropriate, it's not about saying, you're a rat bag, you're never coming back here, I can't trust you, you're this, you're that. Again, whether they're 2 or 22, it's about sitting down and saying, we don't do it like this here. I wonder if you can tell me why. What can we do about this in the future? And so on.
Yeah.
As it turns out, you can even ask them to apologise. You can even say what happened was wrong, and I think that you need to apologise to this person for that, and walk them through that.
And better to have that conversation while he's Jared and not when you start calling him son.
Oh, Susie. Chris, couldn't you hear the tension building up in Justin?
Good.
You can't.
You got it. But this is the
I'm
thing,
so
isn't
glad
it?
this isn't television, because if people who are listening to this could have seen my face then. My daughter actually, total tangent, my daughter said to me the other day, do you like him? Do you like him? And I said to her, right now, it doesn't matter whether I like him or not. If it ever gets to a point where you're a few years older and things are still going and, things are getting serious enough that you want to talk about a long-term relationship, then we'll talk about whether I like him or not. I'm not going to get involved in this.
You might not like my answer. Dr. Justin Coulson, is it okay to discipline others? Well, if it's the right thing, the answer is yes.
Oh, I've got I can't let him go just yet.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's one scenario we haven't
have
covered.
brought this up.
There's one scenario we haven't covered, and that is, you've talked about it's your turf, it's your home, it's your rules, it's people that you know. We're at a playground. We're at a public place.
Ooh.
It's not someone we know. Another child is misbehaving, maybe being a little bit rough, maybe being a little bit mean, maybe using language that you're not happy with. How do you go about that scenario? You've got no ground.
3 quick things. Number 1, you need to call it out. Number 2, you need to do it in a way that is non-threatening. And number 3, you need to look for the parents. Now, every now and again, parents can become quite defensive and even aggressive. So you want to be careful in the way that you invite other parents in. You might walk up to a parent and say, your son just called my son a name and then he pushed him over and your son's being a bully. And that's probably not a good way to start that conversation. Instead, you might say, where's your dad? Where's your mum? And then you walk over to that person and say, I'm not sure if you noticed or not, but your son and my son have been in a little altercation. Just thought I'd come and get you. I'm having a chat with my son, but I thought you might want to have a chat with yours as well.
Yeah.
And so you want to do it softly. You want to do it gently. Harsh startups lead to harsh outcomes more often than not. The other thing that you want to bear in mind, a story from a friend of mine. He was at a fine dining restaurant where you can take your children, the one with the golden arches and the one with the...
Oh, yes.
Yep.
I know the one.
And,
it's golden, so it must be high class, yes.
Yeah.
And he had his kids playing on the playground, and there was an altercation, and he went in there and started to deal with it. But he was probably a little stern, and the focus of his attention was on somebody else's child. And the parents of that child came in, and they were very upset with the way things were going. So we do need to call it out. We do need to point out, hang on, that's not how we do things. You might do it like that in your family, but we don't do that in public. That's not okay. Where are your parents? Let's see if we can work this out. And involve the parents as much as you can. If the parents don't care, if the parents are on their phone playing Candy Crush, being busy doing important things, then just call it, or remove your kids, or go somewhere else.
Yeah, it's a confronting but important thing, and I guess there was a time where I've seen, it wasn't me involved, where one parent, I think appropriately, went up to the other set of parents and went, "There's been a bit of an issue here," and those parents got upset with their kid and had public discipline in the modern interpretation.
Public punishment.
Yes.
A flogging.
And it was almost like they went, I regret, actually, because now that kid is getting really in physical trouble because of the... We don't get to control. We don't understand what the nuances are with other parents and other kids.
Yeah, but it's no surprise to me that if a kid's being a bully and then they get bullied by their parents, that's why that kid's being a bully.
Yeah.
That's what they've been taught at home. So
Yeah.
we need to be better than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can't control it. One thing that I have done in public at one point very quickly was I approached a parent and said, look, I don't want you to get cranky at them, but I just wanted to let you know I've sorted it out at this time, but there's been a little bit of friction between these two. If it keeps going, we can just go somewhere else or whatever, but I just thought I'd point it out. And most of the time, most parents want to do the right thing.
Yeah. That's true.
I like
That is
that.
true.
That's something to be armed with.
Yeah.
That's a great little thing to put in the toolkit. Beautiful work.
Very, very good. Dr. Justin Coulson, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thanks.
And of course, there are loads of resources available, lots of information, books, podcasts, and programs. You can find them all at happyfamilies.com.au. But if listening to Dr. Justin Coulson makes you think that people in your organisation or school could benefit from hearing him as well, you can find out how to have Justin speak for your school or organisation at justincoulson.com.